Welcome to today's edition of the Anaglyph Jukebox. You never know what you'll find on the old jukebox. Let's press B31. Okay, we've got Crime Comics 3D. Monthly comic books reached their peak popularity in America during World War II. Added to the ranks of kids who were the traditional audience for this disposable entertainment on pulp paper were millions of adult servicemen and women overseas. Comic books were good for morale. It was nice to see that Batman and Robin were taking care of fifth columnists and saboteurs at the Gotham waterfront, while Americans were under fire in Europe and the Pacific, with Captain America, the Human Torch, and the Submariner battling Hitler and Tojo. How could we lose? At least in the funny papers. This more adult comic book audience was given more adult content, meaning more sex and violence. Publisher Lev Gleason began the trend with the July 1942 cover-dated Crime Does Not Pay, a landmark issue that started an enormous trend. By 1949, 1 in 7 comics on the stands were crime comics. With peace, the superheroes faded. Nothing had ever sold like the superheroes until the crime comic genre was created. Gleason gave editor Charles Biro and artist Bob Wood a profit-sharing plan and urged them to create new titles. Biro claims the night he met both a kidnapper and a pimp in a bar as the book's inspiration. Others give Gleason complete credit for the concept, which, after all, was also based on a film and radio series from MGM. It was a sales sensation, and although it spawned dozens of imitators, even a few good ones, it was always the most successful of all crime comics. It began selling 200,000 copies a month, and 6 years later hit 1 million copies a month in 1948. 2 years into the run of the title in issue number 24, Biro introduced a narrator figure that would be a precursor to the horror hosts of EC's titles, Mr. Crime. It has to be noted that he was awfully similar to a character created by master cartoonist Milt Caniff and Noel Sickles called Mr. Coffee Nerves, for the coffee substitute Post-it. Mr. Crime was at times encouraging to the antiheroes of these sensationalized tales of popular gangsters like Machine Gun Kelly and Babyface Nelson. But the toothy-grinned Mr. Crime was just goading them onto their last panel demise at the long arms of the law. Crime comics' immense popularity among teens and young adults brought scrutiny to their contents, which regularly featured unmarried adult relationships, drug use, sex, violence, torture, and murder. My mom used to read these comics to me at bedtime. A post-war rise in juvenile delinquency had to be explained somehow. Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against? What do you got? A New York City psychiatrist named Frederick Wertham cobbled together some of his research at the Lafarge Clinic with inner-city children and a whole lot of projection and fear-mongering, and published first an article, then a book, called Seduction of the Innocent, the Influence of Comic Books on Today's Youth. Superman was an un-American fascist. Wonder Woman, a lesbian into bondage. Batman and Robin, a homosexual couple. Well, okay, that one was true. And crime comics offered detailed plans for robbery and torture. Guilty, with an explanation. How can you have a crime comic and not show crime? A landmark 2012 re-examination of Wertham's source material by researcher Carol L. Tilley concluded that he had, quote, manipulated, overstated, compromised, and fabricated evidence, unquote. He misprojected both the sample size and the substance of his research, making it out to be more objective and less anecdotal than it truly was. Ultimately, Wertham did not adhere to standards worthy of scientific research in his cultural crusade against the assassin of youth, comic books. However, his work caught the public imagination and the attention of an ambitious senator named Estes Kefauver, who had a reputation of fighting organized crime. Since the mob was believed to have control of the distribution of magazines and comic books, it was at least tangentially related to his mission. He had Wertham testify. The good doctor stated objectively that the comic book industry was more dangerous to children than Hitler, the architect of a genocide. In the summer after the Senate hearings, 15 comic book publishers went out of business. The industry that was worse than Hitler formed their own self-censorship group, the Comics Code Authority, which neutered comics in America for 30 years.